Thank you, Claire, for joining us on today's episode on a series of podcasts which we want to do on the latest buzzword in the financial services sector, which is family offices. Claire Tanti, the Deputy Head from the Investment Services Supervision Unit at MFSA. We would like to kick off this series by focusing on the regulatory aspects of family offices. Later on, we'll be doing, as part of this mini-series, talks about as well the tax benefits, the back office. But today's episode is on the regulatory aspects, what family offices are, what Malta has done to facilitate structures of these, particularly the use of the notified professional investor fund and the private trust companies, and the differences between them. Basically, we want to put it out there, what is a family office as such, and how can it benefit people who are looking into these structures. So let's start with the very basics. What is a family office?
Thank you for the invitation, first and foremost, Rachel. Well, a single family office is a structure that manages the wealth of a single high net worth family, the primary objective of which is to help the family preserve and grow and transfer its wealth across generations. So basically, family offices typically offer a wide range of services, from investment management, estate planning, organizing philanthropic activities for the family, as well as lifestyle management. Essentially, they provide a one-stop shop for these high net worth families and individuals to manage their financial affairs. A family office could be set up as a structure that manages the wealth of one family, that would be a single family office, or else it can be set up to manage the family affairs of more than one single family office, or it would be a multi-family office structure.
Yeah, I think we'll go into a bit more detail on the differences between single family office and multi-family office in a few minutes. For now, could you go into which are the most common legal structures which Malta offers for these family offices?
Sure. So basically, there are the frequently used legal structures. Typically, are the holding companies, special purpose vehicles, private trust companies, and collective investment schemes, amongst others. The choice of the structure would largely be dependent on the family's preferences and needs.
Agreed. So basically, Malta offers such a wide spectrum depending on such a varied depends on the circumstance of the family, and what they want to set up, who they're going to trust it with.
Exactly, and their preferences as well, insofar as what they would be comfortable with and what they would know.
Exactly. So a bit more on that in a while. Other specific substance requirements which are required in terms of multi-regulation?
It largely depends on the structure that one would choose. So different structures would have different legal requirements depending on the regulatory component. For instance, if the structure that would be used would be a collective investment scheme, most notably the notified PIF framework structure, the notified PIF requirements include that of having at least one local board member. So basically, it depends mostly on which structure the family office would decide to set up their arrangements, basically.
Agreed. Okay. So you've already touched upon it a bit, but maybe if you could go into a bit more the differences between the single family office and the multi-family office. Which are the principal differences between the two?
They are, as we were mentioning, they are a bit fundamentally different in the sense that obviously the multiple family office structure, they're set up to manage the affairs of more than one family. So basically, you have entities which habitually and as their main area of business, so it's on a habitual basis, they carry out services which could be financial services or otherwise on a regular basis for different families. And obviously multiple different individuals. So there, obviously, you're going, once you put yourself out to the public and you're offering your services across different individuals, then obviously then there you would require a license depending on the activities carried out by the structure. So if it's a financial activity, managing the financial affairs, that would require an investment services license. On the other hand, the single family office, it's more of a private affair, so to speak. So basically, there are arrangements in place which we're going to delve into, where ultimately the single family office structure would be there to manage the family affairs of one family. So it's more closely knit and doesn't obviously raise external capital. So ultimately, depending on the structures and the preferences of the family, the structure chosen would be exempt from certain, obviously, regulatory requirements as well.
Exactly. So in this case of a single, in practice, what it is a single family office would likely fall outside of licensing.
Yes.
Obviously, that doesn't do it by way of business or on a habitual basis.
Exactly.
Whereas multi-family office, they're doing it by way of business and therefore would likely fall within the licensing parameters or regulation.
And obviously, I mean, even with the latest amendments carried out by the MFSA on single family office structures, they are helping obviously to create this framework where ultimately, given the nexus, given the connection with just one family, being it focusing on a single family, it will help in easing up and making it more streamlined for the needs of the family.
In fact, these amendments that were implemented last year is what kicked off the whole the industry to promote this. This is what Malta is offering. We're making it. We're facilitating it for you. But, very well. And I think one of the most attractive structures for family offices is the newly introduced Notified Professional Investor Fund, or the MPIF. Just a little background on this. The MPIF is a collective investment scheme, so it's a regulated fund, but however, it does not go through the whole licensing process with MFSA. It is just you just really notify the MFSA of the notification pack, and it's quickly gone to market within a time frame of 10 working days. However, it provides full flexibility of any fund which can be set up in Malta.
Exactly.
So if you set it up by way of a CCAP, for instance, you have you have the flexibility of setting up, of establishing different sub funds so that you can invest in different assets, different investment parameters as well. You can have different share classes too, where I think it's very important when it comes to family offices, because certain categories or certain family members could have different would like to enter the fund differently. So the possibility of having share classes caters for different needs of a high net worth family. So the notified PIF really caters for it. Would really be the perfect fit for a family office as such.
Yes,
but it will be regulated, but still offering full flexibility as a normal fund would.
Exactly, and with the introductions, with the amendments carried out, to get the notified PIF structures already, as we were talking, already a light touch, and it's a notified regime. Ultimately, doesn't go through the full authorization process, as you were mentioning. On top of that, the MPIFs, which are managed basically by fund managers, which are being considered as exempt. These fund managers would be the single family office ultimately, where the qualifying investors or professional investors investing in the MPIF would be investing a minimum of 5 million euros or its currency equivalent, and obviously which can be reduced ultimately below that threshold. And where obviously that is the minimum investment, but on top of that, and that is why we're targeting the family offices sort of kind of niche. If the total net assets of the investors in aggregate is in excess of 50 million or its currency equivalent, then obviously that would be exempt from having a fund management license. And it's regardless where the assets would be. So basically, the minimum investment within the MPIF would be 5 million, provided that ultimately the aggregate net asset value, the net asset worth of the family would be in excess of 50 million.
Understood. And I just want to as well touch base and maybe highlight the exemption on the fund manager. So basically the notified PIF needs to be third party managed. In the case of family offices, there's a newly introduced exemption with respect to managers who are established in Malta and manage only these family unnotified PIF set up as a family office. The exemption is applicable if it manages the MPIF as a family office vehicle, which would target family members or family clients. And the definition of family clients is very wide as well. So it's not only dependents or family members, it's literally extended to employees or even where there's a charitable.
Exactly. Obviously, within the family. So basically, the single family. Ultimately, the individuals would still need to have a connexus with the family. So we're talking about key employees for the family, former employees of the family, again, charitable institutions, organizations that are connected and set up by the family. But yes, ultimately, it evolves around the needs, and that is the beauty of it, because it revolves around the needs of the family for which the MPIF is being set up.
But this was highly, highly commended in the area now, where MFSA introduced this notified PIF, again, sort of outside of the full licensing regime, the exemption to the managers, specifically catering for these family offices. When you spoke a bit as well about the differing thresholds which apply to MPIF set up as family trusts, where the professional or qualifying investors need to invest a minimum of 5 million, and in aggregate the assets should be of 50 million. That 50 million aggregate is taken as the whole fund, right? The whole family portfolio.
It's exactly. It does not necessarily need to be invested in the MPIF. So the minimum investment in the MPIF is 5 million. Mm-hmm. However, in aggregate, as a family, if it consists of obviously different individuals, but within the single family, the aggregate net assets of that family, the aggregate net worth of the family should be in excess of 50 million.
And they don't need to invest all of that into the MPIF.
No.
Understood. So we've touched base on the notified PIF, its benefits. The tax regime is obviously as well a benefit, but that we will touch base in a different podcast. Another cornerstone of the family office structure in Malta is the private trust company, or what the regulations refer to as the registered trustees of family trust. A very basic explanation of a trust would be it's a legal arrangement where the trustee will manage assets for the benefit of the settlers, members or family relatives, which would be the beneficiaries. It's always been the trust regime is not new. It's been in our legal system for many years, and it's a common vehicle for estate planning and wealth management. The trustee would be responsible for the management and preservation of the trust assets. The private trust company, though, there were recent amendments as well to facilitate and streamline this structure specifically for family offices. And it would be run by a dedicated family-controlled trustee. I don't know if you could go into and delve into the regulatory advantages of setting up a private trust company?
Sure. So basically, as you were mentioning, ultimately the one would want to actually set up as a trust because ultimately it will be family controlled, and the trustees' object and activities would be strictly limited to acting as trustee in relation to a specific settlor and providing administrative services, as you rightly mentioned. So given that obviously they will not be holding themselves out to the public as trustee, then you would not need to go through the full authorization process and regulatory process in terms of Article 43. There have been amendments, and we have included Article 43B, where ultimately these kind of trustees would just simply go through a registration process, and they would be able, it would be more streamlined and efficient because ultimately it's just a registration with the authority when it comes to acting as trustee of private trust structures.
So again, quicker time to market when it comes
Exactly.
to a family trustee.
It would be even less than before.
Exactly. In order to do that, they need to be, obviously, as you've mentioned, they have to limited in purpose. They can only act as trustee for family trust, not exceeding 5 settlors at any point in time. So they cannot act as trustee for
no,
in the sense on a habitual basis and by way of business. Another requirement would be, right, that they need to set up a family trust. So the beneficiaries would be
the family of the exactly.
Yes. And in the case of the family trust, as opposed to appointing a professional trustee who might not be so comfortable in managing certain types of assets like works of art or yachts, physical assets, or shares in trading companies, here you're appointing a trustee, a board of trustees who could be people you trust, who will obviously take on
family as well.
Exactly, who will take on the trust. And this is where our regulation became very, very sophisticated, where we integrate the private trust company with the notified professional investor fund regime. Would you care to explain the synergy between the PTCs, which is the private trust company, and the notified PIF?
Sure. So basically, when a family trust is administered by a registered trustee, is established to invest in an MPIF overseen by an exempt fund manager. The definition of a family member, family dependent, as we were mentioning within this framework, is applicable to the trustees of the family and can be extended, as we were mentioning, to other members and key individuals for the family. So again, as we were mentioning, like key employees, key former employees, the charitable organizations, depending who obviously the family they consider that are crucial and key to them to benefit from the trust ultimately. Ultimately, this is very good because it provides flexibility, as we were mentioning, in who can benefit from the structure ultimately, because it will identify whoever. It does not necessarily mean to be the close net, tight net family members, but depending on who they would like to have as a benefit of the trust structure, they can be included within that definition as well.
So basically, where you set up a private trust company to invest in a notified PIF, you can widen the pool of beneficiaries as such.
Exactly, as long as obviously it
falls within the definition.
Within the definition, doesn't raise external capital, because ultimately then when we start touching out with external capital, then obviously other licensing requirements and implications might arise. But ultimately, yes, that is the goal, that within the MPIF can obviously they can invest the private trust structures, which ultimately you can include different individuals within the definition of who would be the benefactor of the trust structure.
So we've gone into the benefits of setting up family offices here in Malta, the regulatory frameworks, how MFSA has streamlined and facilitated these structures. Obviously, everything depends on the circumstances of the family. What is driving them to set up the office, who they want to appoint to administer the assets. But we do have the framework which allows of very varied options for them. Just to summarize a bit of what we've discussed, the single versus the multi offices. A single focuses on one
family,
high net worth family. Multi offices, you're offering the services to varied families. However, their licensing requirements would need to be taken into consideration. The MPIF advantage, setting up a fund, a regulated structure, though this would not be licensed, quickly gone to market within a time frame of 10 days, and would be managed by exempt fund managers.
Exactly.
We've also discussed the private trust company benefits, all the benefits of setting up a trust, which would also be a lighter touch. There's a lighter touch with respect to the registration rather than the full licensing requirement for the trustee. Where obviously they are not promoting themselves out to be trustee for more than 5 set laws.
Exactly.
And then there's the integrated approach, where this is the beauty of our structures. We combine them to allow even greater flexibility
for ultimately for the families and the high net worth individuals ultimately.
Exactly. Just on a general basis, can you think of any other benefits for setting up in Malta for a high net worth family abroad? Why would they come to Malta besides the regulatory regime?
Sure. Obviously, I mean, I believe that Malta as a jurisdiction does offer a very stable environment where obviously these kind of individuals and these kind of families can foster and grow even as a family. Ultimately, you have a good educational system. We do offer even further investment. So ultimately, the aim of facilitating these kind of structures is to see Malta as a place where these kind of families of high net worth individuals can see an opportunity where they can grow as a family as well, including further generations and raise their generations to come ultimately.
And I'm sure what helps us, I think, as a jurisdiction as well is we're English speaking, which matters. We have international schools as well, which would be a factor to consider when you're training a family.
Yeah, exactly.
So these are all factors which will be taken into consideration, I'm sure, when jurisdiction shopping.
Exactly. And ultimately, even in so far when it comes to the financial side of things, as we're saying, the facilitating and integrating these kind of niche areas into the notified structures also helps into obviously ensuring that there's time to market and greater flexibility in so far as regulatory approach and less potentially regulatory intrusiveness, also taking into consideration the needs and the considerations of a family. So ultimately, as a family, we're not this product is not obviously is not there to raise external capital. It's just a vehicle to ensure that obviously the assets and the family financial assets and net worth continues to grow and foster. Ultimately, it's giving the right environment with potentially the least possible cost, because ultimately the regulatory cost is reduced significantly through the notified structures to help and achieve that objective.
And their estate planning as such.
Exactly.
And even the ecosystem that we have in Malta for these family offices. We've got fully capable administrators, to enable to enable the administration of such setups.
Exactly.
And with very
yes, ultimately the individuals and who would be involved in servicing these kind of structures and these kind of vehicles. Ultimately, they're more than capable, and we have good dedicated workforce who's knowledgeable and able to obviously administer and provide the right services for these structures, basically.
So I think that brings us to an end. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time
and for the invitation.